The university is, the building is under construction at Fursatganj, and the process of appointing the key functionaries, that is the project director and the vice chancellor, that process is on. There is a search and selection committee which has been constituted under the chairmanship of Cabinet Secretary, and that committee will meet shortly and consider the prospective candidates. As far as the safety aspect is concerned, there was a mention made during the inaugural address about a new Civil Aviation Authority bill which had been introduced in the Parliament sometimes last year. The Parliament Standing Committee made certain recommendations. Those recommendations have been examined by the government, and the Cabinet in the month of January, based on the recommendations and the amendments which have been accepted by the government, the revised Civil Aviation Authority bill was approved by the Cabinet. Unfortunately, it could not be considered by the Parliament because of the paucity of time. So therefore, the bill will have to come back to the new Parliament when it is constituted. On the question of aviation policy, we are in the process of doing a consultation with stakeholders. We've had meetings in the Ministry of Civil Aviation with various stakeholders representing different segments of the industry. We've got the inputs. We've got the inputs from various agencies, and we are in the process of drafting a policy. But clearly, as you would all appreciate, that this policy will have to be considered by the new government. As far as the priorities that were mentioned, many of the priorities were spelt out in the inaugural address by various speakers. But clearly, one or two things that I would like to mention is that regional connectivity and bringing the tier 2, tier 3 cities where a lot of economic activities are taking place. That is one of the priorities of the government. The second thing is that in order to make these airports viable and in order to make the airlines operation viable in these tier 2, tier 3 towns, we are in the process of developing a low-cost airport model. The third thing is that we feel that there is a lot of potential in the Indian manufacturing sector, and the Indian manufacturing sector could play an important role in providing components and other services to the aviation manufacturing industry. In fact, right here in Hyderabad, you have an SEZ. There are already units which are functioning, which are manufacturing important components for big manufacturers in the world, and this is clearly an area which requires a lot of attention and growth, both on the parts of policymakers and on the parts of the Indian industry. Related to this is the development of the MRO facilities. One such facility does exist in Hyderabad itself, but there are certain suggestions which have been received, and government will consider these suggestions. In fact, in order to promote both MRO and the manufacturing sector, we have kept a meeting of the CAPAC, which is a committee created for the promotion of aviation manufacturing. This meeting is taking place tomorrow. On the issue of the 520 rule, that again has to be considered by the Cabinet. So it is difficult for me to say at this point in time when the Cabinet will take it up for consideration. See, when the audit team came in December, there were 7 observations which were kept open. Now, out of the 7, as you mentioned in the previous conference which the minister had, 2 of them were work in progress. The remaining 5 stood completed. These 2 pertain to training for which slots had been identified, and the training is been substantially completed. By the end of March, the entire training as envisaged would be completed. The second part pertained to the appointment of the Flight Operating Inspectorate. Government has created, based on the recommendations, technical recommendations made by in the audit, 75 posts of flight operating inspectors at different levels. On the question of the FOIs, I think, as I said, that the selection committee and the DGCA, which actually is responsible for recruitment, a number of issues which the questioner mentioned. I think we will wait for the recruitment process to be gone through, and if there are any recommendations that the DGCA would like to make, having gone through the recommendation process, then it's an open question. On the realistic expectation, I think this question has been substantially answered. As I said, we will go for a review after we complete the process of recruitment. Now, when it takes place, I think that question is difficult for me to answer, because when will the reassessment actually happen? We are pursuing it at all levels, and we'll pursue it at all levels once we put in our request for a review. The safety, I think it's an important question, but let me assure all of you that the safety standards as laid down by ICAO or any other global convention, and as laid down by our own safety regulator, these security and safety instructions are followed, but safety and security both are an ongoing exercise, and I'm sure that the authorities continuously review their procedures, which is what is happening in India. Beyond this, I don't think there is any specific that we need to get into at this stage. A draft paper has been circulated. It has been put on the website of the ministry. It spells out the format, the functions, the various activities which the Ombudsman would be looking at, and that consultation will happen during this period when we hope to get the views. Only after this comments have been received on the draft consultation paper, then we'll take it forward from there. Full-time appointment,
Okay.
which is the government has approved for 3 years. So it's a regular Director General of Civil Aviation. The airport authority position, as you know, there is a certain procedure for filling up this vacancy, which is done by the Department of Public Enterprises. So that request has gone to them, and it will follow its own course, which is the laid down course. On the question about Tata Singapore and AirAsia, you see, there are certain procedural formalities that need to be completed. Now, if the security clearance has to come from the Ministry of Home Affairs, we have put the request to the Ministry of Home Affairs, and they have a certain procedure to be gone through. So we are awaiting, and it is difficult for us to say when they will be able to give us a clearance.